When you go into Dervock churchyard and you get a fella called Meeke, there's a very interesting story behind that.
Like many villages in this part of the world, young men went off to serve during World War I. And there's one particular figure who's well known to the folks in Dervock, John Meeke. And John served in the Enniskillen Fusiliers, and he's remembered because on the 7th of June 1917, he saved Willie Redmond on the battlefield. Willie Redmond would have been the brother of the politician John Redmond. It's a story that's been remembered many times over the years because of the bravery of John Meeke.
Meeke joins the army and he goes to France. And in 1917, the Battle of Messines, he finds himself in the heat of the battle, and he sees a wounded officer. Now, they would have knew by the shoulder flashes what each other were. They knew by the accents what each other were. Meeke was an Orangeman. He signed the Ulster Covenant in Verdun Hall, but here he was in France, and here he was looking down at Major Willie Redmond, an Irish nationalist. And they set their political difference to the side, and Meeke tried to save his life. And at one point, Redmond ordered him to go save himself. Meeke refused to accept that order, and he got Redmond pulled to safety and to the clearing station. But Redmond, due to his age, he was in his 50s, I think, he passed away in the clearing station. But if it hadn't been for Meeke, he would have no hope whatsoever. Meeke gave him hope. And
a few years ago, we managed to track down the grandchildren of John Meeke, who weren't aware of the story of their heroic grandfather. And it was wonderful to bring them here and let them visit the grave for the first time and show how highly respected that the hero of Messines, John Meeke, was in this part of the world.
The local bar, there used to be 3 bars in the village. Only one left is the North Irish Horse. Why is it called the North Irish Horse? Is again because of Willie McLernan. He, when he left the army, he went butchering in Portrush, and then he decided that there was a pub up for sale. He went to the heads of the North Irish Horse in Belfast, got permission to use that name, and that name was then after the North Irish Horse people who served in the village. They were killed on active service. Whatever has happened in the world, and especially here in Northern Ireland, the North Irish Horse was a registered place to tick the box. Must go there.
But folk used to be fit to get into that bar, and they started talking. You could have been 2 strangers. You come into that bar, you started talking to me, and then you started talking to that other one. See, before you left, you knew each other right back 3 generations. You're really talking about this. And they could keep a conversation going for they come in before them to the morning to well after Closeton was supposed to be. And that conversation went on, and that chat went on. There were some of the greatest storytellers ever I heard, and some of the things they tell beggars belief, but hey, they were brilliant.
Tourists used to come here and just sit in the wee front bar. They would stay the day, had something to eat, had something to drink. All because of these ex-service people. And it wasn't just the one service, all 3 services, including the Merchant Navy.
I think as we get further and further away from those conflicts of the 20th century, the First World War and the Second World War, the memories are lost. We're now losing people who have memories and reminiscences of what it was like to live in Dervock during the Second World War. And the sacrifices people made on the battlefields in the Air Force, in the Navy, they need to be recorded and remembered. And that's why the work of local historians like Robert Thompson, who wrote the book on World War I casualties, that work is so important because the families then have that information which they can pass on to the next generation. We must never forget what they did. And whether it's through education, whether it's through murals or passing on names and stories, that's something that people in Dervock take great pride in doing. As the President of America, William McKinley is well known. He was assassinated in 1901. He was initially elected after his campaign in 1896 as President, and he successfully ran again, was elected for a second term. Now, the unique thing about him is that his wife was very ill at that time, and he never left her side. He ran his whole campaign from home, and yet he still won the election. And then he was assassinated in 1901. And again, places like Dervock, which had such a strong attachment to him, would have passed into mourning on hearing that news.
There's artwork around the local area, but part of it is so the local community actually can see their own history.
David Haldy was the head of the school up there, and he was a great guy for the valley, so he was a great teacher. And he was talking to 2 or 3 folk, and they were saying about Kennedy K. MacArthur, who won this gold medal. When he started to investigate it, of course the village already knew, but he started to investigate it, and he discovered that this was a postman who left Dervock and went to South Africa.
Kennedy K. MacArthur was born here, and he moved to South Africa. And he's probably the only athlete I've ever come across that only ever ran 6 marathons, and he won all 6. And the last one he won, of course, was the Olympics in 1912. And there's so many stories about him. He was a real character. And after he won the Olympic marathon, he came back here and he was welcomed at the station in Ballymoney as a hero. And in 2012, we commemorated that centenary and we brought a delegation over from South Africa. So even today, a great athlete like that is remembered. And it's wonderful for the people of Dervock to think about him coming from this part of the world.
But what people tend to forget, within that story, he also broke the world record.
The youngsters in this primary school were picked up in their history, and they developed these pictures of the different images of the Dervock people who had lived here and their connections. And I thought that was a fantastic project because it showed to the wider community, the school children, they were all interested in history. Even the very school children was interested in history. It involved them, by bringing them on board, involved them into their history, and made them part of the village.
At the minute, we're working with 2 or 3 groups in the village. Like when they done the village plan in 2018, we identified 16 community-based groups within the village. Like you've got the 4 churches, you've got the Loyal institutions, you've got the Royal British Legion, you've got the local businesses. So collectively, we have a plan to move forward. Again, it's how we take this forward as a community.
You didn't join the community association. If you're in the village, you're in the community association. You didn't join and bury your leg and sing "Abide with Me" in a corner. You just, if you are for the village, you are already a member, and you can come in and vote the same as anybody else. So you're not hidebound to be a dyed in the wool, somebody has to march in and march it. No, if you had interest in something and nothing else, you come and talk about that.
Dervock has got to change and become more colonialised in their own little village. When we're able to cross that bridge, I think we've cracked it. I think Dervock is a flourishing village. It's got a lot of characters in it. It's got a lot of talent in different fields, musical, painting. There is still quite a few in the village serving.
I might be from Coke, but Dervock's my home now. I'm a Dervock man. I'm not a Coke man anymore. Like, I'm down here that long that this is where I call home.
Back in the day, everybody knew everybody because it was more of the village. Whoever was born and grew up in the village, that's who was there. Things are different now everywhere in life because, you know, there's other people now have moved in, and that changes sometimes as well. People who have never lived in Dervock or been brought up are living in Dervock. That's not all bad. That can be good as well sometimes, and it brings people together from maybe a different path of life. But without those kind of things in a village, you know, I think it's important to have maybe the wee pubs and the shops and things in a village, because that means people meet up and it keeps the community together. Whereas if they have to move out to go somewhere else, you know, the people aren't meeting together and doing that, they're going their own way. So it'd be nice if it could stay, you know, sort of in that way, context that they could stay together.
Well, I believe in the next 20 to 30 years, Dervock will progress enormously because currently there's 2 new businesses moving into the village here. There's 2 or 3 new building sites there's new housing being developed even as we speak, you know. So we as a community are trying to work in partnership with statutory agencies, you know, like the council, the Community Relations Council, DERA, a lot of those core fundings. We're looking at, again, the whole aspect of tourism.
I'm very, very proud. I'm proud of the village where I was born in.
There's no other community in Northern Ireland, or probably even the island of Ireland, that can record and recite the amount of heritage that stemmed from this small population.